God divided the Red Sea for Israel. The author is Abraham Park. God's providence leads the Israelites to the Red Sea after the plague of the firstborn. The Israelites embarked on the Exodus from Ramesses, Numbers chapter 33 verse 3. There were three main routes to Canaan from Egypt in those days. The first route is called the Sea Road. In the Bible, this route is called the Way of the Land of the Philistines, Exodus chapter 13 verse 17. This road follows the coastline of the Mediterranean Sea, through the cities of the Philistines, such as Gaza. It is the shortest route to Canaan, only about a 10-day journey. God, however, led the Israelites, who had journeyed from Ramesses, around by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea, preventing them from taking the way of the land of the Philistines. Exodus chapter 13 verse 18. Hence God led the people around by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea. And the sons of Israel went up in martial array from the land of Egypt. The word for led around in this verse is sabab in Hebrew, meaning to turn about, to go around, and to surround. From the start, God did not lead them to the nearest way of the land of the Philistines, but led them around by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea. Exodus chapter 13 verse 18. The second route is the way to Shur. This route starts from the Goshen area, passes Succoth and through the heart of the wilderness of Shur, leading to the center of southern Canaan. The Israelites, who left Ramesses and camped for the first time in Succoth, could have taken this route. However, God again led them down to Etham and did not let them take the way through Shur. Exodus chapter 13 verse 20. Then they set out from Succoth and camped in Etham, the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord was going before them in a pillar of cloud by day to lead them on the way, and in a pillar of fire by night give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. The third route is the way through Mount Seir. This road starts from On of Egypt through the northern part of the Gulf of Suez across the central area of the Sinai Peninsula, ending at Etzion Geber at the northern tip of the Gulf of Aqaba. From there, the Israelites could have continued on northward to the King's Highway by the east side of the Jordan River, passing through the plains of Moab, and crossing the Jordan River into Canaan. Numbers chapter 20 verse 17. After departing from Ramesses, the Israelites arrived at Succoth, camped there. Exodus chapter 12 verse 37. Numbers chapter 33 verse 5, and then moved on to the edge of the wilderness, at Etham, and camped. Exodus 13:20, Numbers chapter 33 verse 6. Setting off from Etham, as they descended down toward the Red Sea. The Israelites could have followed this path into Canaan. However, God changed their direction again and let them camp before Migdol, by the Red Sea. Numbers 33-7. Exodus chapter 14 verse 2. Tell the sons of Israel to turn back and camp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. You shall camp in front of Baal-zephon, opposite it, by the sea. To turn back is sub in Hebrew, meaning to circle around, and to return. God commanded the Israelites to turn to a direction opposite from where they were headed. God had them change their direction to head toward the Red Sea. This direction, however, led them to a dead end with no way out. Having heard of this situation, Pharaoh thought, "They are wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness has shut them in," and he started chasing after them with his chariots. Exodus 14-4. Why, then, did God not choose the shorter routes to Canaan, but instead continued to change their course or even turned them around, ultimately leading them through the longest route of crossing across the Red Sea and toward the southern part of the Sinai Peninsula? There are two reasons. First, God was concerned that the people may change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. Exodus chapter 13 verse 17. Now it came about when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, even though it was near. For God said, "Lest the people change their minds when they see war, and they return to Egypt." At that time, the way of the land of the Philistines was the shortest course to Canaan, but God did not lead them through that route. Since the way of the land of the Philistines was a major trade route in those days, that route was guarded by the Egyptian border patrols, and in order to enter Canaan, they must pass through Gaza, where belligerent Philistines were posted. Thus, had the Israelites taken root, an all-out war would have been inevitable. Other also routes posed a great danger of war. Second, God had a strategy to destroy Pharaoh and the Egyptian, Exodus chapter 14 verse 4. Exodus chapter 14 verse 17, "And as for me, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them. And I will be honored through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. Then the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, when I am honored through Pharaoh, through his chariots and his horsemen." God led the Israelites to the Red Sea in order to judge the sins of Egypt. The sins of cruelly killing the Israelite baby boys by casting them into the Nile and afflicting the chosen people of Israel for 400 years, Exodus 1:22. When the Israelites camped before Migdal, near the Red Sea, Pharaoh determined that they were shut in by the wilderness, changed his mind, and began to chase after them with his army, Exodus 14:3. This, however, was God's superb strategy of leading Pharaoh of Egypt and his army to the Red Sea by intentionally making it seem like the Israelites had been shut in by the wilderness. Pharaoh, just as God had planned, chased the Israelites all the way to where they camped by the sea, beside Pi-hahiroth, in front of Baal-zephon, Exodus chapter 14 verse 9, and the Egyptians took up the pursuit. And all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots and his horsemen went in after them into the midst of the sea, Exodus 14:23. God had confused Pharaoh and his army so that the soldiers trembled in great terror. They were disoriented and did not even know what to do. The wheels of the chariots came off and broke so that they could move no farther, Exodus chapter 14 verse 24. In the end, God restored the flow of the sea at daybreak and returned the Red Sea back to its original state, thereby letting no one escape and destroying them all. As given in God's word that he would be honored through Pharaoh, all Pharaoh's chariots and horsemen, his entire army ended up buried in the Red Sea. There are numerous references to this event in the Bible, Exodus chapter 14 verse 27, Psalm 78-53. Exodus chapter 14 verse 30. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Exodus chapter 15 verse 19. For the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his horsemen went into the sea. And the Lord brought back the waters of the sea on them. But the sons of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea. Psalms 136-15. But he overthrew Pharaoh and his army in the Red Sea. For his loving kindness is everlasting. The Israelites were no longer slaves of Egypt. They found their freedom as the chosen people to fulfill God's administration in the history of redemption. Dry land appears in the midst of the Red Sea. God dried up the land and allowed his people to walk through the midst of the sea as on land. Joshua chapter 2 verse 10, Nehemiah chapter 9 verse 11, Psalm 74-15, Isaiah chapter 51 verse 10. Exodus chapter 14 verse 21. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. And the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. So the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on the dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Regretting that he had let the Israelites go, Pharaoh chased after them with his chariots, horsemen, and army. Exodus chapter 14 verse 9. However, God moved his angel and the pillar of cloud behind, placing them between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of the Israelites. Over the Egyptian camp was cloud and darkness, yet there was light for the Israelites. Thus, the Egyptians could not come near the Israelites all night. Exodus chapter 14 verse 19. Then, God had Moses stretch out his staff over the Red Sea and divide the waters. Exodus chapter 14 verse 21, Psalm 78-13. When Moses stretched out the staff, God's amazing power caused the waters to become walls on both sides, and the sea turned into dry land. Exodus 14:21, Psalms 106-9. According to scientists today, the wind speed needs to be at least 240 miles, 384 kilometers per hour in order for the Red Sea to divide and the water to stand as walls on right and left sides. Exodus chapter 14 verse 22. However, the Bible testifies that it was a blast of breath from God's nostrils. Exodus chapter 15 verse 8, 2 Samuel chapter 22 verse 16, Job chapter 4 verse 9, Psalms 18:15, and his rebuke, Psalms 106-9, Isaiah chapter 50 verse 2, Nahum chapter 1 verse 4, that divided the Red Sea. Even thought the ground beneath the Red Sea had been wet for thousands of years. It dried up immediately when God caused a strong east wind by the blast of his nostrils and his rebuke. Thus, the Israelites were able to walk on dry land through the divided sea. That is, the earth in the midst of the sea. Exodus chapter 14 verse 21. Truly, this scene of over 2 million people passing through on dry land in the midst of a parted sea must have been a spectacular sight. As the Israelites escaped from Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, and were liberated from slavery in Egypt, saints, too, can escape from the sinful world like Egypt and find liberation from the bondage of sin only through the baptism of Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 1. The author of this content is Reverend Abraham Park. Reverend Abraham Park was an acclaimed world-class theologian with remarkable pastoral spirituality. He had dedicated his entire life to prayer and the scriptures, having read the Bible over 1,800 times. Throughout his lifetime ministry, he was a true pastor who loved the church and the congregation like his own children. His daily schedule consisted of 2-hour prayers and 3-hour Bible readings, as well as continual preaching and evangelizing. With conviction that to die is to live, he prayed deep in the mountains for 3 years, 6 months, and 7 days. When the sun set, he did nothing but pray. When the sun rose, he did nothing but read the Bible. Then, finally, a single ray of grace shone upon him. Through the powerful illumination of the Holy Spirit and by the grace of God, the scenes in the Bible unfolded like a panorama before his eyes. These scenes were written down on large arrowroot leaves which were bound with a twig. They were later transcribed onto paper bought from a village under the mountain every few months. This is how the Reverend Abraham Park's sermons began. Many people are impressed by the Reverend Abraham Park as follows. How can a person love so many people? How can a person make such a big impact to so many people? He is so hard-working, never rest. He never ceased to pray. He deserves to be truly honored for his dedication for the church and the congregations. A true and faithful worker of God.